The Lost World. Yes, folks, we are kicking off what I am calling the Tsunami Studios Dino-Summer. For all of May and June, we are going to be looking at some dinosaur specific movies here on Movie Tales, leading up to the release of what may be the biggest film of the year, a certain rebirth of a certain Jurassic era. I know that May and June aren't fully months of summer, they're more spring, but whatever, you know what I mean. I like dinosaur stuff. I am a grown man who loves stuff that is aimed for young boys. Look at the stuff behind me. I clearly am somebody who likes a big dinosaur, or a big gorilla, or a big shark. I love all those things. I am sure in due time we will be talking about gorilla movies or shark movies, but until then, it's time to talk dinosaurs. We have surprisingly talked a lot about dinosaurs on this channel already. Land Before Time, we're back. We did King Kong. There's dinosaurs in the Godzilla stuff, if you want to talk about it that way. We love a big lizard on this channel. We just love a big creature. And dinosaurs are like the best version of that because they were alive on this earth. And that's pretty cool. So we're going to start off. We're going to go in chronological order, not talking about any of like the big, well-known dinosaur films, but some forgotten ones along the way. And we're starting with a film that is 100 years old this year. So yes, it is a silent film. We're talking The Lost World, the first adaptation of the Arthur Conan Doyle story. And there are specific versions of this film that you can find everywhere. The silent era can get pretty messy with the versions you're looking for. Selective DVDs will have like a specific score they use or specific musical cues. The version I watched, well, I am here to talk about it, is the one that is on Tubi. And the one on Tubi opens up with a little video of Arthur Conan Doyle because this movie was made while he was alive. He died like a couple years after this film. So they're like, let's just film him. He can talk about it. I'm a fan of his work. I think he's one of those guys who had a lot going on. And you're like, yeah, this makes sense. This is just like one story with his character, Professor Challenger. Challenger is a character we'll talk about as we talk about the film. But he made other stories about this weird professor who like went to places and looked at stuff. And that could be a movie. This is not the first silent film we're talking about either. It is a time period in film where we are still in the infancy and we're figuring it out. That is not going to be appealing to everyone, and I am perfectly aware of that. You should watch it though, and I know it's hard sometimes, especially with like out dialogue, because then you really have to pay attention. But it's still rewarding. There's never been a silent film that I have watched from this era, whether it's before 1925 or after, where I walked away feeling like I wasted my time. And this movie is no exception to that. This is a really well-made film that is of the time. And really, like one of the thoughts I had watching this was this really feels evocative of a lot of the stuff we are seeing from blockbusters today, or like of an era, which is so weird to say, but I think you can really see like what filmmakers of like the film school generation, or even before that, like people from the 60s who were making films, you really feel like the ones who are like, oh, this is a genre piece. I love playing in genre. Adventure movies are awesome. I love those old serials. It's big in scope while still being very specific in tone and not like over the top, so it's kind of amazing. I never read the original story. I'm sure it aged fine. Like there are some interesting choices made in this movie, and we'll get into it. So, The Lost World is about this reporter named Edward Malone. He's engaged to this woman named Gladys, and Gladys won't marry him until he has done something exceptional, dangerous, brave, and daring with his life. So he wants to prove to her that he's capable of something in that effect. This leads him going to work one day, and his boss is being like, this Professor Challenger guy, that's his name, Professor Challenger. An insane name. I don't get it. He's having like a symposium. He's talking about like his weird dinosaur and studies and stuff. Why don't you try to like sneak in there and like figure out what that is? Right away we're into it. And that's just the beat of these types of movies, especially from this era. You just gotta get into it. A huge plot line for classic silent films is this girl's unimpressed with you. You have to make her like you. Because it's really easy to convey that on camera. Like you have a schlubby guy or just like a nerdy guy. You can convey being down on your luck and not looking tough. You have a really beautiful girl who's just like pining for certain things. It's easy to film that and make it look good. So Edward goes to this like symposium or whatever. He meets this guy named John Roxton, and he's like an older, daring doing man, and he gets him in to see Professor Challenger. And Professor Challenger, an insane looking man. Like, everyone in here looks prim and proper, and then this insane guy who's like, I'm trying to describe like how you would classify him. He's a mix of Willem Dafoe in The Lighthouse with like Boss Nass. Like, it's just the most insane energy you've ever seen. And he's like, yeah, the Amazon has like secret places and there's like dinosaurs and stuff. And not just like the bones, not like the bones I have in this museum or whatever. There's like living creatures there. If we go there, it's going to be crazy. And everyone's like, why are you a scientist in this community? You're literally making fun of our profession. But he's like, no, I'm serious, okay? I'm serious. If we go to the Amazon rainforest right now, we're going to find dinosaurs in there. I just need a crew to come with me to help me figure that out. So another scientist, what's his name? It's like Professor Summerlee. He's like, I'm an old man. I'm like 60 years old, but I think you're a crackpot, so I want to come on this expedition with you. So he agrees to do it. And because this is going to be a dangerous adventure and Gladys will be like, ooh, danger, Edward decides he's going to go. So does John Roxton. And the reason that John's going to go is because a friend of his and a friend of Professor Challenger's, he went missing there. And his daughter, Paula, is also interested in going on this excursion. That is such a classic thing we have seen, like, covering so many of these weird sci-fi films from like the 50s and stuff. It's such a huge trope that the daughter of a professor is like a central character. She's your female character. I guess this is the earliest example of that. So Paula's going to go on the journey with them. And we just get right into it. We just gotta get on that journey. This is a really good looking film. It is soundstage to hell, and there's some weird effects visually to make things look bigger and stuff. But you cannot fault this movie for looking the way it does. I can't imagine seeing this 100 years ago. It's unbelievable. The fact that I'm still blown away by it today tells me that something was really magical back then, and that this would have just captivated an entire audience and done something completely interesting. That's one of the things I just love to see. Is like, if I could go back in time, I would love to see how people react to this stuff. Because you don't know what's going to happen when you see this. You might be familiar with like the concept of the story, but you're not going to imagine you're actually going to see dinosaurs. Like, you're actually going to see a Triceratops or an Allosaurus. How would you even contemplate that? It's unbelievable, in my opinion. I was blown away by the effect of like the map, where like the ship's going down the map, like they're leaving London and they're sailing down to go to the Amazon. That effect looked great. Now, when we get to the Amazon, this is where like the first big problematic thing happens. We are introduced to two supporting characters. They are essentially just there to like guard the ship and stuff. They have some interesting looks. I'm just gonna leave it at like, that is an African American character, and the text we are seeing for when they are talking, the title cards for when they talk, is very racistly written, and that is the worst part of this film. It is not a major part of this film, but it is there, and it is going to be a thing we are going to see throughout sci-fi in this era. Like, we talked about King Kong. This is the thing that we saw in King Kong as well. That's only 8 years later. They still don't know how to write characters of color in this stuff. It's messy and gross, and I don't like it, but we just have to acknowledge that it's there, and the title cards are just racist, and it sucks. But then we have a bunch of old men and like one young lady just traveling through the jungle. It's soundstage to hell. It is. It looks like that. It's like we're just filming outside. Just let's just put like foliage here and stuff. But there's some really interesting like wide shots too when we're like going down a ladder or like a rope, or we're crossing a bridge that we made. We knock down a tree. We're on like the top of two big, I guess, cliff edges, and we knock down a tree to walk across this tree. And we do a wide shot of that. And it's definitely a miniature walking, but it looks really good, and it's really impressive. So that's going to lead us to the dinosaur stuff. And it is from the 20s. A century ago in the 20s. So it's the stop motion superimposed on the big screen, so they look bigger than they are. But to me, and maybe it's just me because I find this stuff so interesting, it just looks so fluid. Yes, it looks very clay and just like not perfectly sculpted or rendered, but it moves well. Like, I get what's going on here, and that's more important than like looking perfect and flawless. I'm satisfied with everything we're seeing. Every time one of the dinosaur moves, every time we just like interact with the world, it looks amazing. And there's some really good costuming because we are introduced to a caveman or a proto-human or something. There is a guy, I believe it is Bull Montana that plays him, a name you might be familiar with from like classic film. It's like a weird ape creature hybrid. He hangs out with like a chimpanzee and they like terrorize them. But he's like smarter than that, so he throws rocks and stuff and he can kind of do things. It's scary in a very weird way, but I understand the importance of that and how you need that kind of antagonist in there, because we could look at the dinosaurs all day and we could see like the Triceratops fighting with the Allosaurus and all that stuff, and it looks really interesting. But sometimes you just want to see like a big monkey suit like attacking a guy, and you get that in here too. And it looks pretty good. It's pretty interesting. This movie is surprisingly interesting. Like, as soon as we get to the forest, it's like, just look at all this stuff. A volcano is going to erupt, so we'll have to evade the volcano, which is like, okay, we only have like 30 minutes left, and now you're introducing a volcano plot? Okay. And because there's a volcano, like a brontosaurus gets trapped in some mud, so when they get closer to like leaving the forest, they take this brontosaurus. And this is suddenly where it's like, oh, so this is where King Kong comes from, right? Like, the end of this movie is just King Kong, and that's a film we talked about years ago on this channel, but it still holds up well, and so does this movie. It's kind of crazy in that way. All the characters are so well handled. Professor Challenger is an insane guy who's just like, yeah, we're just going to use a rope to climb this thing. Just get used to it. There is sort of a love triangle between Edward and Paula and John Roxton, because Roxton wants to be with Paula and Edward's engaged to Gladys. But along the journey, Edward and Paula start to get feelings for each other because they're the only people under 40. So yeah, that would happen, I guess. And then when we go back to London and we're like, hey, I'm Professor Challenger, I did get a live brontosaurus. I'm literally just waiting for the call to prove all you assholes wrong. And when he gets the call, it's like, the brontosaurus escaped. It's literally terrorizing the streets right now. And boom, there's the King Kong stuff. A big dinosaurus walking down the street, terrorizing everybody. It's amazing. It's amazing. Like, that is an insane effect. I don't know how they did that. That's 100 years ago. I don't know how they did that big brontosaurus terrorizing actual streets with people on it. It's unbelievable. Now, the one thing about this movie I did remember before going into it was the ending on the London Bridge, or whatever bridge it is. That seared into my mind. I don't know where I saw that before, because this movie I've seen glimpses of. I've never seen like the full thing. I just know that image, and I'm like, where do I know that from? But it's just so seared in my mind. So I was like, oh, that's what this is. Looks great. Unbelievable. They don't kill the dinosaur. It just like goes into the water and they're like, all right, so how do we deal with this now? It's easy, but yeah, that's the point. You gotta make it easy. And then we wrap up the love triangle because Gladys, because it's been like a year since Edward left. So he comes back and she's like, yeah, I met this other guy. We're married now. And he's like, well, you said to be daring. And you're like, yeah, you did. That was like girl stuff. It's been a year. I've grown up. I'm not 18 anymore. I'm 19 or something. So John Roxton's like, I'm like 100 years old and this girl's like 22. So I'm just going to back off. And Edward, you guys clearly want to be together. So go ahead and be together. Now, before we end this, I did mention earlier that this reminded me a lot of like modern blockbusters. Here's what I mean. We have well-rounded character actors doing insane stuff. Everyone's distinctive. There are silhouettes you will recognize. You could easily make like high-end toys based on these characters. They are so iconic in that aspect. There is humor in this. There's very strong humor. It is subtle sometimes, but it is there. And you have to be willing to go on the ride of the title cards to get the humor. It's kind of amazing how funny this actually was. There's a romance plot, and that's pretty cool. I like that. We kind of got like our asshole guy, our smart guy, the older gentleman, and then our love plot. And I'm like, that's all there. There's high octane action. There's adventure stuff. There's side antagonists. Like, so much of it is just stuff we see created in the modern movie today. And of course, this is one of the biggest films to ever come out when it came out. So yeah, that's going to mean something. That's going to stay true to some stuff. It looks good. And maybe I haven't talked about the dinosaur aspect enough, but they look great. They're really fun. It's such a fun little movie. I appreciate everything going on here. In my humble opinion, it looks better than movies I've seen this year. Some of them. There are some movies I've seen this year that don't look as good as this film from a century ago. And that is saying something. Like, film is such an interesting medium. And to see the way it's evolved from 100 years ago to now, it's fascinating. So much has changed, but so much is simple and so much is the same. The way we frame women and show these stories and depict action and character, it's very fascinating to see the evolution of that. And a lot of that just comes from the influences and the power that the Lost World has. It's taking a concept you're familiar with, but just giving you the most pure, honest, insane version you could get. And that's incredible for a movie like this. I love it. I'm super happy that we're starting with this movie. It is going to be hard to top this one because The Lost World just nails it at every single point. It gets the job done. I really dig it. I want to talk more about silent films on this channel. I feel like we'll get to it again eventually. It's such a specific art form, and we could break it down even more, but you have to be so aware of what you're putting in camera. And this movie is so aware of what it's putting in camera. So that is The Lost World. That is kicking off our Dino-Summer here. And thank you all for watching this video. Be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. As always, you can check me out on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. And of course, I will catch you in the next one. Have fun. Stay safe. Good luck.